All right, so as sports science students, you guys live and breathe evidence, right? Everything's about data, peer-reviewed studies, the hard facts. But here's the thing. The athletes you're going to work with, well, a lot of them use treatments that exist way outside of that framework. So what do? How do you handle that? That's what we're going to get into today.
And really, it boils down to this, doesn't it? You've got an athlete, they're looking for that tiny edge, that faster recovery. So what do you recommend? The pill that's been through a million clinical trials, or the herbal remedy that people have been using for, like, 1,000 years?
See, the world of healthcare isn't just one straight road. It's a huge landscape with these two major paths that often seem to go in totally opposite directions. So in this explainer, our goal is to give you a solid framework, a way for you as a future practitioner to critically look at and make sense of this whole world of complementary and alternative medicine, what we call CAM.
Okay, so here's the plan. First, we'll figure out what CAM even is. Then we'll look at the two big philosophies of healing. We'll dig into why CAM and the science you know so well don't always see eye to eye. After that, we'll map out just how huge this field is. And finally, we'll give you some tools to actually evaluate this stuff for yourself.
All right, first things first, let's get a handle on the language. I mean, you hear all these terms thrown around, right? Complementary, alternative, integrative, holistic. It's easy to get lost. So let's actually define what they mean.
So, complementary medicine. It's pretty much what it sounds like. It complements the standard treatment. The key words here are along with. So, imagine an athlete is getting standard physio for a torn muscle, but they're also using acupuncture to help with the pain. See? They're used together, one alongside the other.
Now, alternative medicine, that's a different story. The key phrase to remember here is in place of. This is where someone uses a non-conventional treatment instead of the conventional one. So maybe an athlete decides to use reflexology for their arthritis and stops taking their prescribed anti-inflammatory drugs. That's alternative.
Okay, then there's integrative medicine. This is really interesting because it tries to build a bridge between the two. And for you guys, this is probably the most relevant one. It's an approach that takes conventional and CAM therapies and combines them, but here's the catch, and it's a big one. It only uses the CAM therapies where there's actual evidence they're safe and effective. It's all about trying to responsibly take the best from both sides.
And you've definitely heard the word holistic before, right? It's a huge concept in the CAM world. Basically, it's this idea that you're not just treating a symptom, like a sore knee. You're treating the whole person, their mind, body, spirit, the whole shebang. It looks at everything from what they eat to their stress levels and mental health.
And here's something that's super important to remember. These definitions, they're not set in stone. What's alternative here might be totally mainstream somewhere else. I mean, take Compo medicine in Japan. It's a system of herbal medicine that's fully integrated into their healthcare, even covered by their national insurance. But over here, we'd stick it in the alternative bucket. It just goes to show you how much culture and context matter.
And that really gets us to the heart of the matter, the deep philosophical divide. Because this isn't just about whether you use a needle or a pill. It's about two completely different ways of thinking about healing. Two traditions that have been running side by side for all of human history. So you've got the art of healing on one side. This is all about the practitioner's intuition, their experience, and what the patient themselves feels is helping. And then on the other side, you have the science of healing. This is based on objective, measurable, scientific ideas. And that's the world you're being trained in.
Yeah, this art of healing, it's really personal. It's all about the patient. It actually embraces the idea that things are subjective, that intuition plays a role. It's not trying to isolate one little variable in a sterile lab. It's trying to understand the whole messy, complex picture of what makes a person well. That's that holistic idea again.
And then you've got this science of healing. This is your home turf, right? Biomechanics, physiology, randomized controlled trials. It's structured, it's evidence-based, it's all about being objective. And because of that, there's just not a lot of room for intuition or those highly personalized approaches.
So, why the big clash? What is it about the scientific framework that makes it so hard for CAM to fit in? To really get it, we need to look at the pillars that modern science is built on.
Okay, modern science basically stands on 4 pillars. First, there's objectivism, the idea that the scientist is separate from what they're studying. Second is reductionism. If you want to understand something complex, like a human body, you break it down into its smallest parts. Third, you've got positivism. This one's simple. If you can't physically measure it, it's not real data. And number 4 is determinism, the idea that everything happens for a reason, that we can predict things based on scientific laws.
And when you look at those 4 pillars, well, the problem becomes pretty clear.
complementary medicine just doesn't fit into that box. I mean, how can a holistic therapy that's all about the relationship between the practitioner and the patient, how can that possibly fit with objectivism and reductionism? It just can't.
You see, the proof for most CAM therapies comes from a totally different place. We're talking centuries, sometimes thousands of years of observation, of anecdotal stories passed down. And look, that's a massive library of human experience, no doubt. But it's not what modern science demands. It doesn't prove effectiveness or, and this is a big one, safety in the way a clinical trial does.
Okay, so if CAM is this huge, sprawling world with its own rules, how in the world do we start to make sense of it all? Well, what we need is a map.
And we really, really need that map because we are talking about more than 700 different treatments and diagnostic methods. This isn't just one thing. It's this giant, messy umbrella with hundreds and hundreds of different practices huddled underneath it.
So to help us out, the National Center for Complementary and Alternative Medicine, or NCCAM, created a pretty useful map. They've broken CAM down into 5 big categories. You've got whole medical systems like traditional Chinese medicine. Then there's mind-body medicine like meditation and yoga. You have biologically based practices, think herbs, vitamins, supplements. Then manipulative and body-based practices, which is where you find chiropractic and massage. And finally, energy medicine, which includes things like Reiki. Okay, so we've defined our terms, we've looked at the philosophies, we've even mapped out the terrain. Now we get to the most important part, the so what. How do you, as a practitioner, actually evaluate this stuff when an athlete walks into your office and asks about some new therapy?
Well, here's a really useful framework you can use. It's a way of sorting these therapies into different groups based on things like regulation and their evidence base. So for instance, in Group 2, you have things like aromatherapy and massage. These therapies don't usually involve any diagnosis, and they're often not very well regulated. Then things get a bit more controversial down in Group 3. You've got 3A for those long-established systems that kind of exist outside of science. And then there's 3B, and this is where you find therapies like crystal therapy or iridology, which, to be frank, have no credible evidence base behind them. This is a great starting point, a tool to help you begin to ask the right questions.
And this really leaves us with the big question, doesn't it? The one you're going to be wrestling with your entire career. On one hand, your entire education is built on evidence-based science. But on the other hand, the athletes you work with are people. And people believe in things, and they feel real benefits from things that science, right now, might not be able to measure or explain. There's no easy answer here, but understanding the landscape we've just talked about, that's the absolutely essential first step.